Okay, welcome listeners to the next iteration of Coffee with Co podcast. Happy that you're back with us again this week. The idea of Coffee with Co came out of COVID-19, as I'm hoping that you will have similar initiatives coming out of your own campuses. What we wanted to do was to promote the sense that there is a silver lining to every negative situation, and to try and approach every situation that you come to with positivity rather than negativity. We want to start conversations, and to thank our participant today, Mr. Ramón Barquero from the Marketing Department and Communications Department at the Modern Languages section of University of Granada. Thanks for being with us today.
Hi, Chris. It's my pleasure.
Yeah, it's it's funny. We do this. I don't know. Sometimes each week we have a podcast every day, and other times it's once a week. And when there's no real pressure about it. But I find it amazing to be sitting. You're sitting in Granada, and I'm sitting in Ireland, and the people that are going to listen to this will be Australia, America, wherever it is. And so it's part of the kind of. I wouldn't say it's innovation, because this has been doable for many years, but it's been pushed out of COVID-19, and I want to talk a little bit about that in a while. But first, let's kind of set the scene. Tell us, how did you end up? I know you were just mentioning that you've been with the Centre for Modern Languages for 20 years, which is a great indictment of how it is to work there, and I'm sure that there's a strong team beside it. But what did you do before that, and how did you come to work there?
Well, I never expected to end up doing marketing at a place like the CLM, but so sometimes when I realize where I am, I think that I should be happy, because that's probably although I didn't know, that's probably the type of work that I always wanted to do. How did I end up? How I ended up working at the CLM is a long story. I major in English, we call it here philology, English language and literature at the University of Granada. But before that, I spent 2 years in Vancouver, Canada, when I was very young. I ended up there. I went to college there. I did my English as second language instruction there too. But after 2 years, I realized that although Vancouver, British Columbia is a beautiful place, I miss home too much, and my family in Granada. Granada is a place that once you have lived here, it's hard to give it up. So I decided to come home. It was not an easy decision, but I'm happy I took it. And as I said, after that, I decided to return to university here. I did my major in English language and literature, as I said. I think after that, it was a matter of destiny, luck, or whatever. I had an interview at the Centro de Lenguas Modernas, and I got a position there. After that, I realized that I although my instruction, my academic preparation was for teaching, I realized that that wasn't something I really would enjoy. I started working with at the CLM, doing marketing, I started going to international conventions such as NAPSA, ACTFL in the United States, and I realized how much I like that. That gave me the chance to meet a lot of people. It was such a great experience. And I guess after that, I decided to go for an online master degree at the UOC University, an online university in Barcelona. So I spent a whole year, doing the masters, and that's how I actually got an official frame for my marketing job right now.
Mm-hmm. I would say, with 20 years, I do a lot of the business development for Learn International as well, and I would be very traditionally focused in terms of how business develop. It's about personal relationships, and the medium through which you do that is something that changes a little bit, such as what we're doing here. But really the very little changes. People work with people that they like and that they trust and that they have a bedrock of relationship in. But has there been much change in terms of what was there a marketing position in the center before you got that position, or was it something that you kind of created for yourself and made yourself indispensable?
I think you are defining that. That's how it worked. No, there was not a specific position. I guess I had to do all kind of stuff at the beginning. But year after year, with all the new tasks, the new work that we were actually creating, because the CLM was growing and everything. I guess that's how the marketing position was actually created.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Sorry, go ahead.
No, I don't know if you know what I mean, but it's actually what you how you define the creation of the marketing position at the CLM. That's right.
Yeah, so it's interesting that you went and did your online masters and got that certification in terms of that industry, because it is something that one can do without really being scientific about it, but you wouldn't be as effective. So I find that interesting. Tell me a little bit about what's happened in the last 2 or 3 months at the Center for Modern Languages. How has the crisis affected you, your colleagues, students? I presume everything is shut down. What happened, from January, February, March? You would have been talking to partners and trying to, kind of get students home and those types of things, or how did it play out on the ground?
Well, it's probably how the situation evolved is probably very similar to how it did, for you and also in other countries. I think in the beginning, December, January, we were hearing about what was going on in China and everything, but at that time we were not aware, what was actually coming. I think it was the end of February, maybe March, when we realized that that was coming and that we were going to be in the in the middle of that. The situation was going to be really bad, and then we started to to get ready for that. I think it was maybe a week before the Spanish government declared the state of we call it here estado de alarma. It's a state of emergency in other countries, right? That was March 14th. But before that, we realized that our students were going to go back home, and also not only because what was actually happening here, but also that most of our students come from the United States. I'm talking about the international ones, the ones that come to Granada to study Spanish language and culture. So it was also the situation in the United States, what was happening here at the level of politics and decisions and everything. So all the students were getting ready to go back home. So by March 14th, I recall, I think most of them were gone. At the same time, we realized that we needed to get ready for in terms of classes and everything. We had to adapt to the new situation. So we started working on our online classes to be able to provide the students that had paid for their courses to be able to provide them with an alternative. And from then until now, it's been like a I mean, time has flown. It's like a nightmare, like a bad dream. After that, I think we did a good job, because it's not only the remote work that we are doing from home right now. It's also all the preparation that is required beforehand. I don't know if you know what I mean. We had to prepare, for remote work, and that's a lot of work especially for our multimedia team, the people that are in charge of everything related to our programs,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff.
Yeah.
And after that, we've been working hard. I think I told you that I have the feeling we've been working harder now than we used to when we were at the CLM. Well, I spend more hours in front of the computer now than I remember, spending beforehand.
Yeah, I think we were just talking before. I was saying, it's when I was explaining the podcast, and the focus of it is, trying to maintain that separation, that work-life balance when work is actually happening from the home, and also when there is quite a large demand on your time. And it can be stressful as well, because your output on a personal basis might not be what it usually would, because the types of things that we're doing are different, and we're not as good at those. And so, what I've heard from partners and other folks on the podcast has been, the challenge that very quick upskilling and training of teachers in terms of online delivery. What platform do we use? How do we brand it? How do we, mold it so that it's CLM focused, and those types of things. And it all has to be done very quickly, to the point that it's to a certain level that's acceptable, that people will pay for, and it's delivering. It delivers your promise, essentially. So, we don't, as a provider, we don't teach ourselves. We provide experiences. So we haven't had to really engage in that type of process, but I've talked to a lot of people in the industry lately, and I think they have the same kind of issues that you're talking about. But what about CLM as a business? Is it feeling a lot of stress? Is there, have some colleagues unfortunately been let go, or how is it going?
We are there are like over 100 people working at the CLM, between faculty, between teaching staff and administration and services. About 35 of them belong to the administration and services department. So unfortunately, 20 of our colleagues had to be. It's not fired. It's not that situation in Spain. We call it it's a legal it's a legal tool that the government use. Companies use to sort of get rid of the people you don't need. It sounds awful, but it's not something permanent. It's something temporary until the situation goes back to normal. So, but it's tough. It's tough to see how 20 of your colleagues are gone for a while, and but at the same time, for us, it's like a challenge, to work hard, not only for the CLM itself, but also for those people that have been working with us for a long time, because we want them back soon. So it's a big challenge, and it's a motivation as well. Yeah, so 20 out of 35 are gone for now. Yeah.
Wow, that's I suppose it's a similar situation to ourselves. We have more than 50% of our staff unfortunately gone, and it's a stressful thing. It's a disappointing thing, and it hangs over you with everything that you do. It adds additional pressure, but it's also a sadness that's there, and unfortunately that's the way it is. But again, as I was explaining earlier on, that what I want with the podcast is not necessarily to focus on the negative aspects of COVID. They are there. We acknowledge them. We don't shy away from them. But what I want for us to do is to focus on positives, be it how do we stay positive, or innovation that's coming from COVID. So the things that COVID has forced us all to do. Is there anything happening in the center that you think is not just a short-term solution, but is something that will now be brought into the general offerings at the center that wasn't there before?
Yes. Well, I think we are sort of creating a temporary solution, which I believe it's going to be an opportunity for the future. I think we are creating an opportunity out of a threat, and
Mhm.
that's our new online course proposal. We've been working hard on that all this time that we've been confined, at home, and hopefully next Monday it's gonna be out, and ready to
Launch. Yeah.
yeah, it's gonna be launched and ready to for students to be able to attend online classes and everything. And we did it in such a quick way. We've been working really hard, and we believe that in the future, um, of course, we hope to offer Granada as a on site as a place where the students should come, because there is no other way. That's probably the sense of our business.
Mhm.
But we feel that online courses will be a complement to that, and that's why I said that I believe we are creating an opportunity out of a threat.
Yeah, that's interesting. We were just chatting with somebody about the area of virtual exchange and hybrid delivery of programs and those types of things. And I think that seems to be what a lot of people are talking about, is that what we are developing now may not necessarily be maintained in the shape that it's developed, but
Mhm.
some form of it will become part of our ongoing offering, and it will extend programs into 3 months in Spain, 2 months in Spain, 4 weeks in Spain, with some form of online interaction and
Yeah.
engagement with students in a pre-departure format, or in a more educationally focused format in advance and after the program. And I think
I agree.
yeah, certainly, I think we're looking at it, and I've been saying to other folks on the podcast that uh, we can stand still and we can batten down the hatches and just get to the other side of it, or we can stand up and start to develop and say, right, we're not going to be the same institution or organization or university or person on the other side of COVID that we are now. And I think that's the thing. But so, what personally, from your perspective, how has COVID? How have you coped with moving from going to the office every day to now having to work from home and that type of thing? From a personal perspective, how do you engaged with it?
Um, I'm fine. I'm fine because I think I'm a tough-minded person, and as you said in the beginning, I remember the saying you were mentioning of that uh, American
Yeah, that's.
soldier, American military, and I'm like that. I adapt to what is coming,
Mhm,
and I try to row in that same direction. Otherwise, I mean, you lose. You
mhm,
have to adapt to that. And I have a 16-year-old daughter, so she has to see that her father, her parents in general are strong, and uh, I'm surprised. I'm surprised because not only for me, not only for myself, but in general. When I stop to think, when I realize that most people, we are taking this in a much better way uh, than I would have said. Uh, for my generation, we never thought we would go through something like that. That was something that belonged to the B movies, to a movie theater. That's unrealistic. But
mhm.
in that sense, I don't know if you know what I mean. In that sense, I'm surprised how well we are adapting to it. Because it's tough. Yeah, if you think about it and if you analyze it, it's really tough. It's hard. It's a nightmare. But in general, people are taking the whole situation with a lot of calm. And since I am a strong person. I think I'm adapting well, and also I think it's important that you feel well at home, and I do. I like my house. It's nice. Uh, so of course, I miss my colleagues. I miss my work. I miss going to Granada every day. But that's something I know. That's something that I will enjoy when I go back. In order to enjoy good things in life, you have to go through some tough ones, and that's my actually my philosophy.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. For the listeners, we were chatting before, Ramon and I were chatting before we started recording, and I was talking about a previous podcast with Dr. Caroline Cully from Georgia Tech, and she was talking about her father. Used to be an Army Ranger, and when times were tough, there's no way around it. You just have to go through it, and I think that's what you're saying. One of the things I think that's really interesting, and it's the first time somebody has spoken about it when we talk about personal life and how it's affecting them, is your desire to show strength for your family and for your daughter, so that she sees that this is what you need to do. You need to stand up and move forward. Everybody I would imagine is feeling that way, but you're the first person who has voiced it, and I think that that's a really important thing. Is that the only way that younger generations will learn about how to deal with adversity and adversity, should I say, is to learn from what your parents or those that you look up to do, and to mimic. And it's the same from when you're waddling around as a child to all the way through. And I think that that's a really important thing. Everybody, regardless of what their job is, what they're doing, needs to provide a good example at this stage. And that then feeds into what you were saying before, where you were thinking that you think that people are dealing with this quite well. I've been saying that as well. I've been talking to Cara, my wife, and saying I'm really proud of how people are not losing it altogether in general, and are staying kind of calm and working with it. And certainly here in Ireland, I think very largely speaking, there's a huge amount of people doing what they're told, which needs to happen in these cases. But from the perspective of the fact that there will be quite a lot of people, I suppose, listening to this will be based in America, and getting a sense of what the last 3 months has been like in Spain, when so the state of emergency was brought in on the 14th of March, and then that allowed powers for local police to be able to basically enforce restrictions and those types of things. How has that been accepted on on a grassroots level, from a person to person? People, there's been no real demonstrations or those types of things.
No. I think in general, I just say, police forces here, different different corps, different types, but in general they are very respected, and very professional. Uh, uh, like in every other job, there are always exceptions. I myself had an encounter with with the local police here, because I was doing everything I was doing was within the law, but some of them, especially local police here, not the national police or the Guardia Civil, who are very professional. They have a long experience, fighting terrorism and all that stuff. Very professional people. We are very proud of them. But sometimes local police who are not that professional, they like to show that the less professional. I always say that the less professional you are, the more you like to show that you are that you have authority, right? Mm-hmm. And I was walking my dog. I have a Labrador, a big one, really nice, at night, 9 o'clock, and I was like, we are allowed to do that. That's that's considered in the state of emergency. You can walk your dog for 10 minutes, so they do their things and stuff. And I was like 50 meters away from my house. I saw the car coming, and they just stopped, and they know me, because I'm also the president of the whole neighborhood. We have like an association and everything. I believe it was more like something coming from the mayor, because we are like kind of fighting everything we consider is not fair, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and they told me, next time I see you, if I see you there or whatever, I'm gonna give you a fine. I said, why? Why are you going? Do if you have to and everything. So I was very upset after that. I say, one, you can't. I am aware in when the situation is on, you don't push your luck, because they have the authority to do anything they want, and they'll make it up if it's necessary, So I didn't push it, and I said to my wife, once I came home, I was so upset because it was so unfair. I said, once this is over, I'm gonna go to the city hall, and I'm gonna talk to the chief of police, and I'm gonna. It's almost forgotten, but that type of things happen. I was just telling you as an anecdote, but in general, I think as I said, the police is very professional here. I think most people, like you said, in Ireland, have done what they were supposed to do. Of course, there are always exceptions. I see on TV how, there are thousands of people who have been fined, but you see, uh, as you were saying before, mental issues arise in this kind of situation. And that's quite understandable. Couples who don't get along well with big families or whatever, if they are confined for such a long time, that will mean more problems and all those type of things. But in general, I think people have respected what they were supposed to do, and police force and everything have been very professional, very helpful. I think they are one of the best parts of this whole thing, and they are part of the solution, I believe.
No, that's great. It's interesting to see your run-in with the law. That's. I hope you're not noted on a list now someplace. And that, but no, I jest. That's. It's funny how those things can happen. But when you were just talking there, it was interesting. One of the things that I think about international travel in general is how it opens the mind to. How we are all the same regardless of our color of our skin, the language we speak, the religion or lack thereof, whatever it is, all of these different defining factors that society puts on you. At the end of the day, we're just humanity. We are humans, and the same issues that we come across. So somebody who's in the outskirts of LA in California, or somebody who's in Moscow, or somebody who's in Granada or in Ireland or wherever it is, this is a great leveler where we're all experiencing, broadly speaking, the same thing. And one of the things that I've heard quite a lot about, which is here in Ireland, and I'm not sure if it's the same elsewhere, but there are a lot of adverts at the moment offering support for domestic violence. Which is something that's really shocking to me. I've never experienced it myself in my own lifetime. But just touching on what you were saying there, where you have couples that are not used to spending that amount of time together, and then suddenly they have to stay in a confined amount of space. So all of these knock-on effects that happen in COVID, we all have to deal with on a personal basis. And so staying positive is a really important thing, I think. How do you, on a day-to-day basis, stay positive? Because you're feeling these frustrations as well in terms of having to stay and not going to work and those types of things. Obviously, you've talked that you're pretty happy in at home and those types of things, but it must get annoying at times for you. And how do you personally stay positive? What do you do?
Well, as I said, I'm a positive person in general, and I think I have too many things in my head. I always have too many things in my head. I have too many hobbies. I have too many things to think about. The only problem I have is I don't have the time, right? And so I think in a way the mental health is a direct consequence of having your mind entertained. Because I don't know if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I always say, because although I'm a positive person, I'm also very analytic. I like to say that life happiness or life is a I'm becoming a philosopher now.
No, that's good.
It's a lie. It's a lie itself, because bad things always end up happening, and uh, at the end, what he's expecting is, it sounds very bad, but it's dead, right? We
Mhm.
all are dying everything. So life is like, you have to keep lying to yourself all the time. You have to keep making up, happy moments.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're gonna see your parents die. You're gonna see people you love die. You probably don't care about your own death. I don't care about mine. I'm just worried about what you leave behind and everything. I don't know if you know what I mean. So you have to make up. Uh, you have to make up your happiness, day after day. Uh, so it's better
Mhm.
not to think about the bad things that you have around, and there are so many good things to think about. The people you love, the hobbies you have, if you have any. That's probably my problem. I have too many. Uh, and I think that's very important. I thought, okay, I'm gonna be home for, I don't know. We didn't know beforehand how long we're gonna have to be confined, right? But I thought, okay, the time that I'm confined, since I like my house, I like decoration, I like working with wood and all that stuff. I'm gonna have a lot of time to do a lot of things. BS, BS. I told you I'm spending more hours in front of the computer now than I used to. Okay, so I don't
Mhm.
have that, and you also have to help with the kitchen. You have to help. I have to entertain my daughter as well, and that's a job, because sometimes she gets kind of bored, frustrated, and all that stuff. So that requires time and energy, and I realized that I don't have the time that I thought I was gonna have to do other things that I wanted to do. I like writing, I like making up stories and write them and all that stuff. But I don't see the time.
It's amazing because I was just talking to Cara just literally 5 minutes before coming on the call with you, and she was saying, "God, can you believe it is, what is it? It was at 4 o'clock when we started here, and we blinked. We got up this morning, got our coffees, and we were ready to go, and we had our team meeting at 9 o'clock, and then we blinked, and suddenly it was 4 o'clock. It was, where did the day go? And we're finding that the time passes so quickly. And I
Yeah.
remember at the very start of this, I don't know, somebody up there, wherever, some kind of energy must have kind of manifested a thought in my brain. And it was that, this time will pass one way or the other. And we will either have made good use of it or we won't. And so at the time, there's this 12-week online exercise class that I said, okay, I need to get back into exercise. I'm going to do
I
that.
remember you told
And
me.
then,
You told me about that.
yeah,
You
yeah,
told
that's right. I pushed it out to you. So there's
Yeah.
like, I don't know, 7, 8, 10 people that are doing it. Some are on the continent in Europe, some are in America. I think that's as
Mhm.
far as we've got. And then here in Ireland. And suddenly we're 6 weeks in and it's halfway over, and I cannot believe it's like gone. It's just gone like that.
Yeah.
So I feel the days are going faster than they do when we're in the office, and I wonder whether our listeners feel the same way, and taking kind of personal responsibility to make sure that we feel that we have filled our days and that we have got some return on the time that we're spending, but also trying to be mindful of keeping that work-life balance in check, and that mental health piece I think is the really important thing. And the only thing that I know how to do about mental health, which was um, really introduced me with Cara, is just to talk and to try and do it. So that's what this podcast came from, where it was, well, let's talk a little bit. Well, let's have a central theme. Let's talk about how COVID is affecting international education and partners and things like that. But let's also go on tangents and talk about whatever we want to talk about. So, so tell me then. What is happening in Spain at the moment in terms of projections for when schools will open again, and when do you think it will be not back to normal but back to whatever the new normal is going to be? When are you expecting students to be back in the center, those types of things?
Um, as I said, on Monday we are starting. We are launching our new online proposal. We expect for uh, probably for July. Although
Mhm.
we are going to be able to offer those same courses online as well. we expect to have some students. We are not too ambitious because we know that uh, we not only we depend on the situation here, but we also depend on the our main market, which is the United States, and I think they are kind of behind us, as in terms of COVID fight and all that stuff. You probably know more about that, than I do, but I have the feeling that United States is going behind us. That is going to affect their economy in a very strong way, like ours too. So we are kind of aware of the fact that this whole academic year is gone. Okay, but we have a lot of confidence in our online offer, and we expect that we're gonna do a very strong marketing campaign to promote those courses. In a way, we believe that that's gonna give us the possibility of getting in touch with institutions that we were not working with beforehand. But since we believe that the online proposal is going to be very strong, very competitive. In the near future, we think that besides recovering all the programs that we used to have, we are going to have new ones because of those online courses that that are going to be like a tool to contact new institutions.
Yeah, I like the way you're looking at that in terms of opening new channels to new partners, and a multilateral approach to what this program is going to do for the center. So that's great. I think we're somewhat a little bit more pessimistic. I think we're not expecting really much to happen between now and the start of January next year, I think, from our perspective. But we're two very different organizations. So, but I think, I would hope at that stage. My worry in general, in terms of the market, is the long tail afterwards. So once you're over the hump, it's at what point that mom and dad and guardians and whoever is involved in that decision-making process says, well, why don't we just wait another year? You can do it next year. Or why don't we wait another semester because we're not sure. And I think something along with that, and also the point that you made, whereby the States, which is I suppose our biggest market as well as yours, is they have a long journey to go at this stage, both from the health crisis perspective, but then also economically, and the two are interlinked. And the knock-on grassroots effect of that is that somebody loses their job or feels that they're going to prioritize that income that they have someplace else, rather than sending their son or daughter or whoever to study abroad. And so the question is, at what point does it become viable again? It's like here in Ireland, where they're trying to promote restaurants to open up and pubs to open up, but only to take 25% of their only to open 25% of their tables to allow for social distancing. And so they're opening up at a loss straight away. It's impossible for them to do anything. The same thing happens with the likes of ourselves, where we need to have a minimum number, and that's where it is. So, and unfortunately, all we can do is wait and see in terms of the actual mobility. And then the question is, how do we pivot? How do we become more innovative? What do we do with the time that we have between now and whenever it starts again? And it's a really important thing to have a strategy. Have in your own organization, in your own universities, in your own providers, in your own schools, to say, well, we have decided this is what we're going to do, and we're going to do it, so that there isn't a strategy of wait and see. That's something I think is too dangerous. And I appreciate your time, and it's been great to chat with you and to learn a little bit about happening in Granada and your thoughts in terms of, be they philosophical or be they practically focused. And it's great to be able to have the listeners appreciate, how things have manifested in Spain relative to elsewhere. As I say, most listeners will most likely be in the States. So I think to have the opportunity to speak to other international educators outside of the States is something that I really appreciate. So for now, I want to thank you very much for your time, Ramon, and also to our listeners say thank you so much for staying with us. Please do tune in again next week when we are speaking with somebody else from somewhere else in international education and learning about how they've coped with the COVID crisis and what they're doing and are they innovating and what they think new normal will be, and any other rambling thoughts that we have. Thank you for staying with us. This has been Coffee with Cow, a Learn International podcast. And until then, stay safe, stay well, and be kind.